I'm PJ O'Neill, serving as the branch chief, STEM training in the AuxScout program. Welcome to this month's Tech Talk, the shift to electronic navigation with Lieutenant Commander Michael Doig from NOAA's Marine Chart Division. Tech Talks are sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard, Coast Guard Auxiliary, and the Boy Scouts of America Sea Scout program. I'll be coordinating your questions after the presentation, but feel free to post your questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom window. Tech Talks are held on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 2100 Eastern Time. Next month's Tech Talk is on March 25th. We'll hear from Addison Lash and his journey from being a Sea Scout to attending a maritime academy, now to his professional career as a mariner. Just a reminder that this Tech Talk is being recorded and will be posted on both the Sea Scout and AuxScout YouTube channels. These Tech Talks make for excellent training with your shipmates, whether it's in your Sea Scout ship, in your flotilla, or your division. They're available anytime. So please utilize the Tech Talk and share once the video is uploaded to either the AuxScout or Sea Scout or AuxScout YouTube channel. I'd like to turn it over to Branch Assistant Ira Muscovy to introduce our subject matter expert for tonight's Tech Talk. Ira?
Thank you, PJ. Good evening, everyone. Tonight it's an honor for me to introduce Dr. Matt, a fellow NOAA colleague. This is his second go-around, volunteering his time for us in discussing and showing us about charts. So, Commander Doig, take it away.
Right. Good evening, Sea Scouts. Coast Guard Auxiliary. Thanks, Aaron. I'm gonna kind of just walk through a little bit about ENC charts and the shift to electronic navigation. So, to just start this off, I'll kind of define and describe some more of what I'm talking about in this slide. But at the end of this year, all traditional raster charts will be discontinued and will no longer be. What that leaves us with are ENCs, or electronic navigational charts. So this presentation isn't designed to be like a full course for Vectis users or power users. It's really for people who are new to electronic navigation, people who use electronic chart systems, people who are transitioning from the old RNCs to the new ENCs, and people who are interested in the future of navigation. I know that I had a lot of questions and issues when I first started kind of making the shift as a mariner myself. And I tried to capture some of those lessons that I learned and some of the best practices that I've learned to try and get this. I'm trying to tell a story throughout this presentation, but I do feel like I might jump around a little bit, so stick with me and I'll try and bring it all together in the end. And, hopefully it all makes sense. So where am I coming from? I currently work in the Office of Coast Survey, which is one of the oldest scientific agencies in the United States. It was founded by Thomas Jefferson, 1807. I currently work in the Marine Chart Division, and I work in products branch. Chief of MSG, all of the folks that work for me are cartographers, and we make all the nautical charts for the Gulf of Mexico. What is driving all of this this future of nautical charts? NOAA has something called a nautical chart plan. You can actually go out and download this PDF, and you can go through and see what is kind of guiding our plan. Here's some of the kind of greatest hits that are on there. Some of the things that people have given us feedback on nautical charts. Electronic nautical charts over the years are reducing unwarranted alarms, the conversion of these charts to be metric. I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. Providing timelier data, so making sure that the data gets from the field surveys. Sometimes it can take a year from the time they survey to the time it gets on the charts, which we're trying to speed up that process. Improving chart coverage, creating an orderly layout. You may have heard the term gridding, or re-scheming. Those are two like common terms, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. Reducing uncertainties, improving chart and increasing efficiency. So these are some of the things that we're sort of trying to do, and all of that is captured in the nautical chart plan read yourself if you want. It's not really a document that kind of tells you about how we maintain individual charts. It's more like how we're trying to make our entire chart catalog and all our processes and productions better to basically ensure that mariners and folks that are getting most up-to-date and safe information. So what is a nautical chart? We talked about this the last time I was here. This is a raster chart. I'll talk more about raster charts here in a minute, but this is sort of the traditional chart that I feel like people are familiar with. It's got all kinds of information on it. Raster charts are great because there's no guessing. There's no everything that you need to see is sort of presented. There's no extra know-how that goes into using a raster chart. I mean, there are other documents, chart one, and other things you might need to reference, but when you look at a raster chart, it is what it is. But I feel like sometimes when people get to the ENCs and the electronic side, it starts to kind of raise some uncomfortable feelings because people don't really know what's going on. I'm hoping by the end of this, you will feel a lot more comfortable. So, in terms of the data that we get that goes onto these charts, most of that information comes from 4 different types of source. So that's what we call comes into my branch and what we put on the charts. Water depths and the identification of wrecks, rocks, and other obstructions come from NOAA's Hydrographic Surveys Division. There are some contractors that go out and do surveys. Some of our NOAA vessels go out and do those surveys. But when that comes in, we apply that to the charts. We also have data source coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's by far our largest source, and the Army Corps is responsible for surveying the federally maintained channels. The delineation of shoreline comes from the National Geodetic Survey, and position types and characteristics of aids to navigation, buoys, beacons, and navigational lights come from the U.S. Coast Guard. I'll show you why this is important in a minute. This is about 70% of the source that we get, and I'll show you how to figure out what type of source you're looking at when you're looking at an ENC. So, classic raster charts. We've got the raster charts. What are the kind of characteristics that are kind of the most important things to think about when thinking about raster charts? So raster charts are graphic images. They are static. The appearance doesn't change. There's no day mode, night mode. Maybe your electronic chart system could kind of adjust it, but there's no fundamental changes to the underlying image. The sounding units are fixed, typically in feet or fathoms. The appearance of the depth shading is the same no matter what. It doesn't matter what the depth of your vessel is. These charts are pretty much, just a static representation. On one hand, it's really comforting because you don't have to wonder, you just kind of look and know. But on the other hand, ENCs offer some benefits that I'll go over here. So where are we at right now with raster charts? At the end of this year, all raster charts will cease production and will be discontinued. This is a graph kind of showing that trajectory to January 2025 when they will be 0. As of, I think it's January, this information, there's 645 charts that have been canceled. About 200 are in the last edition, so there's about 845. There's 62 left, so that's a total of 1,007. So basically only 16% are still active, and they're continuing to be with last edition and sunsetted every single month that goes by. Some terms that we're going to talk a little bit about today that I kind of want to define before we jump into it, because I know that if you don't know the definition of a term, it can be a little overwhelming. The first thing is this S57. So we'll talk a little bit about S57. S57 is essentially just the standard for what is in an ENC chart. It doesn't really discuss at all about how that information is displayed. It's relatively old. It's been frozen for some time. The standard has been, it was first adopted in 1992. It's essentially just, saying that there's a database of information, but it doesn't tell us how it looks. When we get into S52, that actually describes what this chart content and display looks like on an ECDIS system. So it talks about how ENC data should be shown on an ECDIS. However, if you're not using an ECDIS, and I'll talk about the difference between those two things in a minute, it can be very different on different ECS systems because of how those different manufacturers, people like Rosepoint or OpenCPN or any of these other tools that are available to view these charts, kind of display that information. So here's a quote from the S52 section 1.2 that basically says, it may be noted that electronic chart systems not meeting those ECDIS specification of IHO and IMO or ECDIS using non-official data are known as ECS or electronic chart systems. I'm primarily focusing on people who are using electronic chart systems with this talk. You're using an ECDIS, a type approved ECDIS, that means you have to have special training, etc. to go along. So the difference again is that this electronic chart system in ECS is like a Rosepoint or some other type of manufacturer that can load in these S57 files and you can kind of see the data that's on there. But an ECDIS is something that you would find on a soulless vessel. The crew needs to be specially trained, etc., etc. They call it a type approved because it has to meet all of the standards and specifications of things like being able to have the type approved hardware, all the different types of communications and inputs that go into the system, backup requirements, alarm requirements, all of these different things that an ECS might not have. On some levels, I know that they're working to try and standardize these ECS systems so that they have a little bit more of that those standards that go along with it. But at the same time, it's also nice too because it's not quite as rigid as the ECDIS systems can be. So now we move from the raster world into these electronic navigational charts. You've got a few things about them that are kind of different than the raster charts. You've got the fact that they're dynamic. You can change them so that they appear a little bit different based on information input into the chart. It's a database of information. If you remember, the raster chart is essentially just a picture of a chart. This is not a picture in any way. It's essentially a small file of information that is fed into a computer that then creates what you see on the screen based on what's in that file. These charts are layered, so there's all sorts of layers that get stacked on top of each other to make what you see. There's something called a cursor pick or a pick report, sometimes it's called, that are important in being able to figure out how to navigate and how to query the information in these charts. And they're based on this S57 standard, which kind of dictates what's in these charts. So again, I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit, but I feel like it'll all come together in a minute. First generation of ENC cells was basically produced based on the raster footprints of these old existing raster charts. So we basically made the first generation of ENCs the exact same footprint as these old raster charts. What we're doing now, if you look down here at the Great Lakes, you can see these red outlines of these crazy shapes. Those are all of the old raster footprints, which then became the exact same footprint for ENCs. If you look underneath, there's these blue kind of rectangles that are, edge matched and kind of perfectly in line with each other. Those are the new ENC footprints that we're doing with this gridding. One of the reasons, there's many reasons that we're doing that, but ECDIS users, and especially these massive ships that are coming into ports, are requiring really, really, really precise information. And by getting better data and more regular data, it actually improves this positional accuracy. Our old ENC products, we had 12 ENC cells, and they were compiled at 100 different scales, or over 100 different scales. I'll show why what we're doing next is way better. Our new set of scales that's going along with this gridding project are shown here. The berthing charts are not really in use, so it really starts at these band 5s, kind of this orange color, and if you look at the image next to it, that orange color corresponds to that. These used to be 1 to 5,000 to 1 to 51,639, and it's a range because it could have been anywhere in between those two numbers. Our current band 5 are either 1 to 12,000 or 1 to 22,000. So one or the other. No. Same thing with the band 4s. And if you notice these ranges for the band 4s, the approach charts actually overlap. So if you had a 1 to 50,000, it could have been a harbor chart or it could have been an approach chart. That's no longer the case. Now it's 1 to 45,000 or 1 to 90,000. And so on and so forth. These coastal charts, generally, you can see the actual fixed scales that go along with these charts. Yeah, that's all I have about that. So this process is currently ongoing. There's a website that you can check to see if the charts in your area of interest are currently gridded and available. I'll show you what this website looks like in a little bit. But if you go, you can see the green ones are currently completed. If they're completed, you can go download them and view them on your own. Some of these yellow ones are in their final quality check. They go through a third party that we use, LCDR, our source, to make sure that it works properly on all the ecdyses and other machines out there that are taking these, that the file isn't corrupt and doesn't cause all kinds of issues. And then the last ones are in work, so we're currently working on the red cells there. Hopefully they'll be released soon. If it's just an empty blue box, that means that we currently have the plan, but we haven't actually gotten to production. Roughly about 40%, I think it's a little bit higher than that, in this green, which means you can go out and get them. But we still have a long way to go. I think we still have 18 months to 2 years to these new scales and new footprints as well. So where can you go get an ENC? If you go to NOAA's, if you just Google like NOAA Coast Survey, it'll probably take you to this web page. But you can go to the chart locator and you can still look up and find the ones that are still available, these RNC charts that are available, but the ENCs are available here. So you can go in, you can look for place name, you can look for the name of the ENC cells, etc. And go in there and you can download. A lot of like ECS systems will actually let you link directly into our website and download batches you can download by region or other ways. And that sets up also like some of the automatic updating. But again, if you have a specific software that you like to use, just get comfortable with it and know how to use it to be able to find. But these are freely available on our website, and go download them. So something that I run into a lot when I just got back from Texas, I was just down working with some pilot groups down there and kind of talking about some of these issues. And I mean, people that have dealt with these charts for years and years really have become, they hold on to those chart numbers, like they just know them like the back of their hand. And 11237, 12230, they just know them. I was a little bit sad recently and just put 411, which is the Gulf of Mexico chart, into last edition actually today. It made me a little sad because I remember being on my ship and having it underneath the plexiglass on the chart table, and we even had one on our mess deck that we moved around on. So putting it, having that go away was a little bittersweet for me. But people love these chart numbers. The new chart numbers are very different than those old ones. There is not an exact, these numbered ones were kind of easy again to remember. There's not an exact correlation to the new cells. I don't know that there's as much need to remember those numbers as there are with the ENCs, because they kind of just all match up together. So I don't know that you need to again remember all of these. But essentially, the way that they are described is you'll have a US 5 Texas 3 EE or a US 5 HOU EH. So in general, this is not part of again, if you're operating in an area or you're interested in an area, go check out what the cells are named. But generally, the first two letters identify the hydrographic office, so US, obviously. The next one represents a scale band. Remember those scale bands I showed you? So band 5 would be a larger scale chart, and band 1 would be a smaller scale chart. So zoomed in, zoomed out. The next two letters generally are the state, so the US 5, Texas. You'll have 3, which is kind of a generic region of within Texas. And then you'll have 2 letters that correspond to a grid. So like EE will be next to ED, then be next to EG, and so forth. Sometimes though, you end up with the US 5 HOU, which in this area is Houston, and then the DH goes along with the grid. So just one of those kind of nuances that if you're new to this, you probably don't have all the chart numbers memorized, but if you're kind of transitioning from that old to the new and you're looking for a way to describe the charts that you're looking at, this is how so when you get onto an ENC, what exactly is there? So items on an ENC, they're called objects. You'll also see it's called a feature. These are points, lines, or areas. I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. Everything on an ENC is a stack of overlapping objects. So, for instance, a light on a buoy, the light is its own object, and then the buoy is its own object. So, when you go to buoys, it can be a little confusing at first because you'll say, I want to know more about the buoy, but you're getting information about the light, and if you don't keep clicking through, you'll never get to that information. Objects can have a 6-letter acronym. They'll have DEPARE, which actually corresponds to the depth area, or MQual, Inform, all of these different object names. They have attributes that are used to define or characterize those objects. And there's an entire website you can go to. It's keras.com, S57. I think there's a couple others. This is just the one I like to use, that you can go to get information on that. You'll notice that some of them will have like little special characters, some other, I guess people call it hashtag these days. You'll have a little bit of information that will tell you that they're mandatory. So if you haven't those attributes, other attributes are optional. So this is kind of what that, well, it's not kind of, it is exactly what that S57 object catalog looks like. Here in the middle, you'll see the object class, so you have the depth area. And you can see, I think these DRVal1, DRVal2 have little asterisks, which I think those two are both mandatory for this depth area, and then everything else would be an option. The attributes are next to it, so an inform is a textual information about the object, and that might be attributes that applied to this object depth area. Cursor pick report. This is the most important, I think, like the most important thing for you to remember when dealing with ENCs is this pick report. This is a picture of the NOAA ENC online viewer, which I'll show you in a minute. But just remember that you need to query these charts and interact with these charts to basically get the information that's contained within those files. These ENCs are layered. So you're going to have, when you get here, if you look, it says identify result 1 of 10. So there's 10 separate things you have to click through to get all of the information. Some of them are not as useful as other ones, but don't forget that the very first thing that pops up for you is not necessarily all the information that there is. You may need to refer to the S57 catalog for clarification if you get to a point that you're not fully comfortable with what it's trying to tell you. You might need to go to that S57 website to basically get some clarity what it is. There's a way to change this to get so that you don't have to memorize all these 6-letter acronyms to you don't have to commit them to memory. I'll show you how to do that shortly. Another thing that is really important here is a lot of people, like I was saying on the chart, it might have a note that is just kind of blatantly obvious, like right in the somewhere in the terrain or at the bottom of the chart. All of those notes are now contained within these pick reports. So there might be an image file if there's a bridge, there might be a text file that gives you some more information that you might need to find. This is what the NOAA ENC viewer looks like, and again, I'll pop this open here shortly. So some things to keep in mind. Like I said, these charts are dynamic. They have different display modes. You can display your base, your standard, or all the features. There's day, night, and dust modes that can kind of change the way the chart looks. Zooming is another important thing. Things like scaling, if you zoom out, you might lose some features like buoys and things because they don't. They'll only show when you zoom into a certain level. So if you're not seeing something, you might need to adjust the chart so that you can pop in. However, on the flip side of that, you don't want to over zoom. There's actually some warnings that you can over zooming because it can lead to inaccuracies with the chart. These vector files, like they basically are infinitely zoomable. You can zoom in really, really, really far, but it's not the reality of the data that's available. All of these charts show their depth in meters to start. Just remember that something like 7.3 meters is displayed like this on the chart. It's like 7 with a 3 a little bit down. So that if you see that, don't be surprised by it. You have depth contours versus depth areas. The depth areas have like a range of depths as opposed to a single point. You have these safety contours that you can adjust or go in and put in a value based on your draft, maybe some additional underclear keel clearance that you want to keep, your vessel squat, or the height of tide as well can also be factored in where you set your safety contour. One thing to note is when you do see the safety contour, it'll be bold so that you'll be able to really notice it. There's a way to set your display to have 2 colors or 4 colors. I prefer 4 colors myself, but you can do 2 colors. And then something else to keep in mind is that these safety contours do not have an additional contour. It's going to go to the next deeper contour that's already encoded in that S57. So, this catsock is another kind of interesting thing. I figured I'd throw it in there. I think a lot of people get used to seeing the catsock on paper charts, and it's kind of a little image on the side that kind of gives you like the quality of the data, how accurate the surveys are. As I was saying before, a lot of this information got pulled from previous rasters. So some of the survey data that we have, and I'll see if I can find some as we go through this, is quite old. So it might actually have a very low catsock, but some of the more modern multi-beam data that's coming out from our ship might be A1 or A2. So there's a way to kind of see some of this as you go through. So best practices to keep in mind, make sure that your charts are updated and loaded into the system. I'm not going to name any names, but I was on a boat recently and they were complaining about something that was missing, and it was definitely something we added to the charts. They just had not updated their charts in a very long time. So when we went and looked, the charts were overly old, and if they would have just downloaded the charts, the problem would have been uploaded them to their system, it would have been solved. Just so don't catch yourself using outdated charts, especially with these ENCs. You should always plan your voyage as you would on paper, note landmarks, lights, buoys, etc. Because at the end of the day, your Mark 21 eyeball is still the most important. If you're not seeing something outside whatever vessel you're operating, and it's not matching what you're seeing on the chart, sometimes things get messed up. You always want to make sure that you're looking out the window and making sure that it matches what you're expecting. This is not a specific, I'll show you the ENC viewer, but if you have a specific system on your vessel that you've purchased or that you use, know how it works. Basically go through and learn all the features, functions, settings, etc. Double check those settings and make sure that your safety contour is, properly set. I don't know if you live in an area where you have a boating season. Making a checklist to remind yourself of some of this stuff is always a good way to sort of refresh. If you don't use your boat for 4 or 5, 6 months, you can, go back and make sure that your chart is set up accordingly so that you don't miss something and accidentally have an issue. Another thing I talked about last time, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but just know that it's available, is the NOAA Custom Chart Tool. This NOAA Custom Chart Tool is a way to kind of go in and it takes our ENC data, So the underlying data in this custom chart tool is the ENC database, but it allows you to create a custom chart that you can print out. When I talked about it last time, I think we were at version 1.3. They've made a lot of improvements to it, so it's now version 2.0. Again, go in, play with it. It's free to use, and you can make as many PDFs and try it out. And we always welcome feedback as well. Like I said, it's a new product, so there's bound to be issues. We were looking through some of those issues today, and again, hopefully it gets better and better as time goes on. This is also part of one of the things. I don't know if this was around the last time I talked about this, but this is the new chart catalog that's available, so that if you go in and create a catalog of these custom charts, you can save that catalog as a GeoJSON file and re-upload it next time you go into the chart viewer, or I'm sorry, the custom chart tool, and you can remake those charts again. This is what a custom chart looks like. For the future, S100 is coming down pretty quick. It's going to be replacing, or it'll probably be coexisting with this S57, but S101 is going to be the next generation of charts, and it's heavily layered. Each kind of feature on the chart is going to have its own sort of standard, and like S102 will be the bathymetric surface, S104 will be water level information, and all of this will be dynamic on the chart. So it'll be really an exciting future. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I think that it's pretty exciting stuff. And if you want to see some prototypes and learn a little bit more about this, marinenavigation.noaa.gov takes you to our Precision Marine Navigation website, and they have a lot more information on the future of these charts. So now I'm going to walk you through a couple of these things that I talked about. I know that there's a lot, but if you want to go to the ENC status and find out a little bit more about the status of these gridded cells, you come here to our web viewer and kind of go around and see what's going on there. This is that chart locator that I had identified earlier, that you can go in and you can pick place names, you can pick a chart. If you want to go through, looks like it's showing on the side of my screen. There's usually a drop down that has all of it's over here, left side of my screen. If you see it, why it's displaying over there. You can go through and pick a chart and then hit submit. It's going to work here. But it'll take you to that chart and you can download it. As I said before, you can download entire Coast Guard districts or other things if you don't want to do it one by one. This and this website too has a ton. If you go through these links here, there is all sorts of really good information. I don't have time today to talk about, but if you're interested, poke around there. Some good stuff. This is that Keras S57 object catalog. You can go through and find out more about all of these different object classes, find out which items might be required, and then what these, like pic rep. If you click on pic rep, it tells you that it's a pictorial representation. It indicates whether a pictorial representation of the object is available. So there might be a pic rep in some of these items that you can click on. Now it takes me to the main event of tonight, and that's the NOAA ENC. If you go to the home icon over here on the left side, scroll down, you'll notice it's got the little, this is not for navigation, it's basically just a practice or learning tool, some way to kind of go in and interact with these S57 products. There's no way to hook it up to a GPS or anything to make it work. So some of the things that we talked about, I'm going to try and go through all of these. I've got a couple notes in front of me that I'll go through. The first thing you'll note is this layers list. You click this off and turn this back on, and you'll see that there's still a base map underneath. You can actually change this base map, but these ENC, as long as this ENC online layer is turned on, that's going to override this. You can go through and turn on all kinds of different layers that are available. traffic routes, special areas, but this one right here, this data quality is how you get that CATSOC information to pop up. So it'll give you more information about what the quality of the data in some of these areas are. Looks like some of this is not the best quality data. So you can go through and compare these to some of the icons that were available. Let's see if anything in here has a higher quality. Yeah, so this looks like it's more currently surveyed. You can see, I think this is, if we go and do a, let's see if I can click on it. This is not going to work. No. Let me try this real quick. I don't know if it's, move this over here. I have dual monitors. Let me see if this is, yep, okay, there we go. Switch you guys over here so I can see you. Yeah, it was the resolution of my screen, which is another gotcha. I'm always going to make sure that you the right screen resolution when you're doing something. But you can click on some of this, and it'll give you. Let me see. All right. It's kind of busy. Straight to there. Well, as you can see, we're going through all of the kind of pick report.
Commander, you're not sharing your screen anymore that you want to share.
Oh, it's not.
No, you need to reshare your screen.
Share. Alright. Does that look better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So, let me see. Let me get back to these layers. We'll turn this CATSOC off. There's other things that you can turn on, like this overscale warning. Like I was saying, if you zoom in too much, you get these, they call them jail bars, and it'll show you that you're zoomed in too far. You can zoom out a little bit more to actually get scale that the chart is intended to be, so that you're not zoomed in too much. So those are some places that you can turn those two things on and off. If we go here to the settings, this is a really important kind of area. You can go through and again notice that the chart is in, like by default, it's in meters. You can go and mess with all the different types of area symbolization. If you look, I think down here at this anchorage or the no anchor area, you can go with plane boundaries, where it'll just turn it to that dashed line, or you can have symbolized boundaries where it'll give you a little bit. The difference between acronym and descriptions, if we go to the descriptions, nope, so it's not doing it. Let me see if I can get it to change. But down here, instead of these being the 6-letter, kind of brief description, if you change this attribute description to actual description, it gives you real words as opposed to just those 6-letter characteristics. You can change to your night mode. You can change to the desk mode. You can change to a day mode, which is depending on when you're operating. You can turn the compass rose on or off. I like to leave it off personally. The other thing that you can turn on are these data extents. If you remember when I was showing you all of the chart footprints, this is what the data extents are. They kind of show where those chart boundaries are. You can go in and also display, if you're interested in the names of those charts like we were talking about, you can turn on display frame text. So you can have the name displayed, so that's the cell name. You can have also the scale at which the chart is compiled. You can have that information there, and you can change where it's positioned or where it's not positioned. But let's turn this off for now. Off, and also turn off the data stats. If we zoom back down, trying to get at some place with soundings. Let's see. Get down with these soundings. You can change the depth units from meters to feet. change them to fathoms as well if you want. I prefer to leave them in meters. I've been trying to kind of train my brain to operate in meters because it seems like everything has been sort of changing to that. So I like to go in meters, but if you still feel more comfortable in feet, you can change it to there. But I will say, and these pick reports, again, if you go to the pick report and you go to the sounding, if you look, the depth is still 10.9, which is in meters. They won't report the depth in feet because it's compiled in meters. So when you go to look, if you also look, like I was talking about before, so this source, it's saying that it's US and it was reported from H-11015. So it's a HIGO survey, so it's likely from the Hydrographic Surveys Division that got this data to put on the chart. So that's easily identifiable here. Sometime it looks like the source date was in 2001. Not super old, but not super recent either. You can go through and you can honor the Skaman, so you can turn the Skaman on or off so that things don't disappear when you zoom in and around. You can go through and just limit what you're looking at to these specific, like if you only want to look at band 5 cells, you can go through and select these harbor cells, or if you only want to look at band 3 cells, you can select coastal and so on. I don't know really too many reasons why you'd want to do that, but you can. You can also go through and select these isolated dangers. It turns on these like little like X's, and you can go through and see what those look like. You can go and label contours, which will give you, the number on the contour. You can use the national names, optional deep soundings, all sorts of different stuff. Another thing that you can do is go through and change the symbology for some of these like buoys and different things. And as you can see, when we zoom in, hopefully these buoys pop into view. Let's go. There we go. So if you go point symbolization, you can go simplified, which changes it to these simplified versions of the buoy symbols, and then you can go paper chart, which gives you a little bit more of a paper chart appearance. There's a lot, and down here you could change it from the 2 shade to 4 shade, and you can turn on and off some of these other features. Going on to the depth contours, this is where you can change the appearance of those depth contours. So let's just leave this one at 2. Let's call this one 6. I'm just kind of making these up off the top of my head. In reality, what you want to do is, again, determine your draft and all of these numbers. There's formulas that you can look at online to determine these. I'm just kind of doing these to show you how it changes. So the contours kind of move, outward to sort of show that there's a little bit better water. Whereas when we move these back up to the other numbers, it looked like it was, a little bit more constricted. So you can adjust these numbers to get it. The other thing that I was talking about before is if you look, you see how this contour line right here is this dark kind of gray color? That would be your safety contour, which is you want to stay on this side, the west side of that safety contour, because that's when you start to get into trouble with the values that you've set. As I said before, you've got these pick reports. These pick reports are like some of the most important things that you need to basically use. Let me go down here and just kind of find that San Diego buoy. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Flashing green. There we go. So we've got the San Diego Sea buoy down here. If you look, SD, it's got the characteristics of it. And when you click on the pick report, you're going to get 15 things that are here. So the first thing you have is a light feature. It's a point. So if you remember, they can be points, lines, or areas. It was compiled at 20,000. And you can go through, it's a NOAA buoy, so it's got the Morse code A flashing. It comes from the Coast Guard, local notice to Mara. That's where that data comes from. And it looks like it finally took that change that I made. So now if you notice, these are no longer those 6 letters, but it actually gives you like the words of what these things mean. If you go through, then you've got a buoy, right? So you've got a safe water buoy. Again, it's a point. It's a red and white pillar, as safe water buoys are. And again, it comes from the local notice to mariner, and you can find out more information. It also has AIS, that's aid to navigation. As you click through here, it gives you information about the top mark, which is a sphere. Talks about the radar transponder that's available. Let's see, fog signal. So if you look, each one of these things that you might think of as being one part of the buoy are kind of broken down into all of these different objects that make up this one thing. It's a restricted area, so it can give you information about regulated navigation areas. And there is text, but I don't see a link. Let me see if it's in another one of these. Interesting. Let me try that. Let me see if I can get this to work. I don't know why this text, usually when you see this .txt, there's a link that takes you to an external text file. I'll see if I can figure out a little bit more about that. This magnetic variation information is there. It's got quality of the data, the MQual. So if you look before, I kind of skipped over it earlier, but if you look, the zone of confidence for this data is A2, so it's pretty good. It's got the IALAB information, nautical publication information. I don't know why these texts aren't working, but see if we can find another one. Gives you information about the sea area, administration area, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things are kind of contained in one PIC report. So you can see that as you go through a chart, there's just a lot of very rich data available. Another cool feature is this box. It's like an area report that you can pick an entire area, but if you look down here, I think we had 15. When I select that area, you get 22. Sometimes you can get upwards of 80 objects when you select an area. So I tend to use the point to basically get through and click that stuff. A couple other cool features that you can do in this, and we'll kind of go through. You can measure. You can use a measure tool, which is a pretty standard feature. It says, use control click, and you can go through and measure. So if you click here and then control click, let's see, measure in degrees. Oh, so this is actually a point. So if you look where the cursor is, it's telling you the latitude and longitude, but I also have this marker that is set, and it's showing me the latitude and longitude. If you look down here, you can also do the same thing where you can get the latitude and longitude in this lower left-hand corner. And if you click there, you can change it to decimal degrees or the degrees, minutes, seconds, so you can get that information as well. And it's also got a little scale bar down there. One last cool feature of this software, I like to play around with, and I don't know, do you guys see OpenCPN? I don't know if that's being shared or if it's a different one. But if you go in and you create a GPX file or some other file, you can import that into this software as well to basically get, I have a file here, click that. Let's see. No layers have been added. Let me try that one more time. Let's go down here, userobjects.gpx. Well, you can bring in a GPX and it'll throw a track line down on the soft. Oh, is it becoming? Let me try this. Let me close that. Ooh, let me do this real quick. Sorry. Let me try this one more time. Browse for this. Go down here. Let's see if that'll do it. No. Man, it worked before the presentation. But it'll allow you to bring in a track line. If you have software like OpenCPN, I keep saying it, it's an open source software that you can download for free. And you can also look at some of these ENC files as well by bringing them into there. From that software, you can export track lines and do all kinds of things. The last thing I think I'm going to show for some of this is kind of a little bit about some more stuff that I've gotten feedback from people who navigate a lot, and a lot of the old raster charts that would have information in these the channels that I feel like people don't necessarily know how to get in these old ways. So if we go back to the pick report and you click here in the middle, you'll see that we get this fairway area. So that's an area, again, point line or an area. It's a San Diego Harbor channel. It's reported from a DD 28146, so it's probably Army Corps. And then as you click through, it'll get to the depths of those. Uh-oh, did I click out of it? Let me get here again. All right. It'll show you the depths of the quarters of that fairway that are reported. So caution area, and then here we go. So if you look, you see how it's highlighting the area that's here. It's a dredged area, and the depth range value 13.3 is the shoalest of that part of the dredged area. You can kind of keep clicking through and get through. If you want to know more about the outside quarter or the other side of the channel, you can go through and click those as well, and it'll give you those values. But one of the cool things about these ENCs is that you don't necessarily need to know exactly what those values are, because when you set your safety contours, the colors kind of indicate what is safe water for you to navigate on versus not, which areas are not safe for you to navigate on. Yeah, I mean, again, you just kind of have to go through and click through some of this stuff to sort of get through or get accustomed to what all of this, what all is there for you to help, plan your voyage and make sure that everything goes according to plan. Another thing that's linked in this front, this little home thing is this U.S. chart number 1. Classic publication that has all of the different symbology and different things that you might want to know about in there. Out here in San Diego, where I'm kind of poking around, there's all sorts of different symbols. Like if you look down here, we've got seaweed and Skaman got me there. So if you zoom in, you can get to where you might have some seaweed or the breaking wave symbols, other things that might be of interest. Down here, you've got breakers, these seaweed items, and again, just click on them and you can go through all the different layers. You've got chart 1, and then the NOAA custom chart tool, which I showed last time. I'm not going to show anything about really how to use this, other than, again, it's available, and it's another tool for kind of the future of navigation, where you could potentially print out a set of these custom charts and have them as a backup or as a training tool for the future. And with that, I think I'm pretty close to my time. How am I doing?
Oh, we're getting closer. Any final points you want to make, Commander?
Let me go back and see if I can try one last time to make this. This absolutely worked before I quit, to show you the track line, because I thought it was really cool. Let me just try one last time. I don't know if it's a internet issue or if there's something. Let me just try and reload this page and try it one last time, because it was a cool feature. I was able to create the route in OpenCPN, and then we were able to bring it into the ENC viewer and kind of overlay it. What I thought was a cool feature. Like if you were trying to do some training with some folks and you created like a GPX file, and you were able to send it out to somebody and sort of have them go through and sort of analyze, like, what sort of issues might you be concerned about? Is this an area that's a no discharge area, or some other speed restrictions, et cetera, et cetera? It might be a kind of a cool way to kind of pass that on. So let me try this one last time. So if we go here, go to File, go to Browse, and go to user objects.gpx. There we go. It finally worked. So if you look, it's got this little track line that I made, and each one of the waypoints is kind of a cool yellow flag. It's just sort of the built-in, uh, feature of the software. I didn't actually like program any of that, but you can bring in a track line that'll lay that down. And again, kind of a cool learning tool if you wanted somebody to do this at home that might not have like an Ectus, sitting in their bedroom or something else. You can actually just do this online and sort of, send them the GPX file over email, and they can load it up into here and kind of take a look at it and see if the route makes sense. But let me see. I think I have. Is this? Let's see. I have, I think, two more quick things. Again, I've mentioned OpenCPN numerous times. I'm not getting paid by them. They are open source software, but I do really like them. It's something I used professionally to kind of look at charts in my stateroom. I had it on my laptop, and I would just kind of plan if I was conning the ship in or we were doing something. I would kind of go through there. I also highly recommend looking at the Coast Pilot. It's another like invaluable tool that is just it is often overlooked, and I feel like a lot of people focus on the charts, but I feel like the Coast Pilot is very, very valuable. And I'll just throw out a plug for this book called Introduction to Electronic Chart Navigation. If you want to know more about this stuff, it's by a guy named David Birch, and he I feel like has been around a long time and has some really great stuff out there. But I really like this book that he put out. I think with that, that is my final. Thank you for having me a second time. And if you have any other questions, this nauticalcharts.noaa.gov, any kind of points of clarification or anything else, we can go there. But I think, I could go on the NOAA ENC viewer for a long time, but I feel like I've kind of covered the big picture items that people need to know.
Fantastic. We do have a couple quick questions. I think this question might be related to coverage and what areas are available and not, because the question is specifically for where are the charts for Baja California and Mexico, but that might speak to a larger question about the available coverage so far.
Yeah, so NOAA only charts are like U.S. Waters, right? Our EEZ basically. So I think it's, if I remember off the top of my head, it's 200 nautical miles from the U.S. shore. So if you're looking for Baja charts, you would have to go through Mexico. There are a lot of companies that will, like, if you have a planned route, they will get you all the charts that you need, and you can pay for that if you don't feel like looking them up yourself. But I feel like Googling, Baja charts. I haven't actually sailed down to Mexico yet. I think the reason I was gravitating towards San Diego is I'm going to San Diego next year to take command of the NOAA ship Ruben Lasker. So I'm really looking forward to that. So trying to brush up on my California charts.
Great. Your question in the comment, I think I knew the answer, but you used a little bit of lingo, the Mark 21 eyeball. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's just with the naked eye, right?
That is the naked eye.
The
that
naked
is
eye.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
okay.
Nothing beats it.
That's right. I've heard it Mark 1 and Mark 21, but that's that's the naked eye for everyone out there. And just two very quick questions that are related.
Sure.
You were talking about, updating charts and a personal experience while you were underway, and if the captain had updated the chart, you would have had the correct information. So the first question is there any automatic chart updating once you've created a chart, and how frequently should I update my charts?
So both great questions. So on an Ectus, one of the kind of, again, requirements for an Ectus is generally that they are not connected to the web, because they want to make sure that they're not going to get viruses or anything else. So for that, like, you need a thumb drive or some other method, a disk of transferring those charts to the Ectus. If you have something like an ECS, sometimes some vessels might have a internet connection, like a nice sailboat or something. You might have a VSAT or even Starlink these days that you can download those charts. Otherwise, again, you would use a stick or something at home to get them before you went out to your boat. But NOAA charts are updated on a weekly basis. They're released every Thursday, so there are new updates every Thursday. There are some questions, and I think we're still working through what it's going to look like. I know notice to mariners and things like that people are very used to looking to see the differences between the old chart versus the new chart. And I know that they're working on a method to kind of establish that for the futures, what that's going to look like, whether it's a website that you can go to see the differences. But I would recommend updating your charts, especially these electronic charts, on a weekly basis, every Thursday. But sometime in the future, it will be daily releases, so there'll be a lot of information. But if you have a internet connected or cellular, connected service, that's one of the benefits of these ENCs, is they're much, much smaller than those raster files. Those raster files could be, multiple megabytes, and these ENCs are usually sometimes just kilobytes in size. So much, much easier to download and shouldn't, they're kind of designed to be a little bit lighter in terms of, their size.
Okay, I have a follow up from our mariner cruising the Mexican waters. So then, do I need to keep my old Mexico charts and sextant?
I mean, I would encourage you to keep your sextant. I feel like that is a skill that, especially if you know how to use it, I would continue to practice it. I mean, what that looks like for the future, I was actually contemplating trying to figure out a way to kind of try and take some sites when I get back out to sea, and how to incorporate that data into an ECS or ECDIS, or whether I just use universal plotting sheets and kind of compare the two. I don't know. Kind of see. I need to play with that when I get back out there. But if you have old charts and you want to keep them, I will say that a lot of people are getting rid of charts these days, because once they're gone, they won't be valid for navigation. But Mexico charts, I'm assuming that they're still keeping those up to date. I don't know enough about the charts in Mexico to really comment, but if they're current and they're updated, I mean, yeah, go nuts.
Hiram, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yep. Do you know, sir, if the British Admiralty still will have their charts electronically?
Yeah, the British Admiralty charts will still be available out there. I know that they had made an announcement similar to us to stop paper chart production, but I think the UK makes charts for so many different countries that they were getting a lot of pushback, because people weren't really prepared to go paperless, and so they kind of, I think, backtracked from that. So I think for the foreseeable future, the UK, I'm not totally sure, but I think it's for the next 10 years, is still planning to make paper charts and electronic charts at the same time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gregory has another follow-up. He's a pro mariner, and does he still need to keep his local notices to mariners and have updated charts in the wheelhouse to be compliant?
So that's a discussion. Again, ENCs are going to become the primary source of navigation information at the end of this year for U.S. waters. They are currently in talks to kind of discuss. There are some vessels that may be able to meet those carriage requirements of the Coast Guard, that they're called like one chart vessels, or vessels operating in very confined, like a ferry going back and forth between the same, two spots over and over. Do they need an ECDIS? Probably not. So they may be able to use the NOAA custom chart tool to print off charts and make sure that they're updated over time to basically meet those carriage requirements. But in terms of, again, it's hard to know like what if you're a Solus vessel, you have to have like updated ENCs and an ECDIS on board. But
I don't know enough about your situation to comment completely, but they're working, the Coast Guard and NOAA's working with them to try and figure out ways to make sure that the rules are in place before the charts get sunset at the end of this year.
All right. Well, Commander, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. We were glad to have you back again. And although it's a related topic, a completely new set of data. This is certainly a tech talk that we're going to have to watch again to really take in all of the rich information that you were able to give about the ENCs. Maybe we could have you back later in the year and set up some parameters and see how to create a custom chart. I think that might be
That'd be great.
great interest. And thank you very much for answering all of the questions and giving your professional advice. I know we all greatly appreciate it. Thank you for everyone joining tonight's Tech Talk. We hope to see you back in March when we hear from Addison Lash about his journey from being a Sea Scout, attending a maritime academy, and now sailing as a professional mariner. Good night, everyone. I hope to see you in March.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commander.